right, well, it is bang on 9 a.m. in the UK. So I would like to say a huge hello and welcome to everyone joining us for this Hong Kong FinTech Week 2020 Global Roadshow. Today we are focusing on Europe and Africa. This is the third session in our Global Roadshow series. And still to come over the coming weeks, we are focusing on Middle East and India, Australia and New Zealand, and mainland China. So if you'd like more information on those roadshows, you can find it on fintechweek.hk. But back to today. Hello, everyone. I am Hannah. I'm the head of FinTech Enterprise at FinOvasia, and I will be your MC and moderator for today. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by a cast of fantastic speakers from across the FinTech industry today, joining us from the UK, from Italy, and from Hong Kong. And a very warm welcome to all of you joining us from around the world as well. I'm really excited about today. We've got a great session coming up for you. We've got a panel discussion. We're going to be looking at going global, entering new markets. What are some strategies and what can we learn from our panelists' experience there? We'll be looking at opportunities in Hong Kong for international fintech companies, and we'll be discussing some other things along the way as well. But before all of that, I would like to first invite Mr. Andrew Davis, Head of Investment Promotion at Invest Hong Kong in the United Kingdom, to kick off this roadshow for us with some welcoming words and to set the scene a little bit by giving us an overview of the fintech landscape in Hong Kong. So Andrew, over to you.
Good morning, and thank you very much indeed for that introduction. My name is Andrew Davis. I'm the head of investment promotion here in the UK for Invest Hong Kong. Invest Hong Kong is the Hong Kong government department responsible for attracting inward investment into Hong Kong from around the world. The UK is a particularly vibrant market for Hong Kong. The London office is actually the busiest office of any Invest Hong Kong office around the world, showing the opportunities that exist in Asia for British companies. And it's been a very interesting ride. I've been involved with Hong Kong now for a large number of years, probably more than I care. 24 years I've been involved in Hong Kong, 10 of which have been with Invest Hong Kong, most recently here in the UK, but prior to that in Hong Kong. So why do businesses come to Hong Kong? I mean, can I have the next slide, please? For fintech companies, it's that there is a vibrant ecosystem. Having worked for Invest Hong Kong for the last 10 years, I've seen this fundamental change in the way of from traditional financial services into a vibrant Hong Kong-based fintech thing. And you'll see from these slides, which everyone can get afterwards, there are lots and lots of different metrics here measuring how Hong Kong has really expanded, whether it's into the Greater Bay Area, whether it's using Hong Kong as a base to go global, the B2B market, and the fact that from the locally founded fintechs in Hong Kong, 37% of the founders come from overseas. Next slide, please. And of course, because Hong Kong is an incredible financial services center, I mean, you have the top three in the world in New York, London, and Hong Kong. The vast quantity of the trillions of dollars that are assets under management, all these things. This gives a great opportunity for businesses to really dive in and find something for whatever their particular fintech wants to do. And I think that's one of the major advantages over other locations where you've got this massive financial services side as well. So that means you can feed into specific areas like insurtech or regtech or even legal tech. So this rich financial services environment really, really does help a company as they start off. Next slide, please. And to help do this, there is this, what we refer to as Hong Kong Inc. partners. So as well as people who provide sort of business help, Cyberport, the Hong Kong Science and Technology Park, W Hub, and various universities and things like that. On the other side, you have the regulators with their sandboxes, the SFC, the HKMA, the Insurance Authority, Hong Kong Exchange and Clearing. So there's a really interesting and dynamic ecosystem to support fintechs as they launch into Hong Kong and into Asia. Next slide, please. So what successes we've had? Well, I just, and I'm sure Keith will talk about this more in the panel, just a few things. Probably one of the ones that I was involved with most was eBri when they first started, a conversation, taking it through, right through to the fact that they've got some 20 staff in Hong Kong, all locally engaged. And that was something that they were pleased to do, was to find the talent there and be able to develop their business model in Asia. And we're getting new people. Tandem Bank have announced that they're going in, check out of their TrueLayer. All these businesses are going in and showing that you can go. I haven't included some of the other players like TransferWise, but there are many more. Next slide, please. So what do I say? Well, Invest Hong Kong provides a free and confidential service. So we're there to help become your sort of one-stop shop, to use that rather hackneyed old phrase, for businesses going in. So please reach out to us. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, there will be an Invest Hong Kong point of contact. Here in Europe, we have offices in Berlin, Brussels, and London, and as well as consultants in places like Italy and the Nordics, Russia, Turkey. Please reach out and someone will be able to help you and act as your guide through the rules and regulations, things that you need to do to make your business a success, because that's what we're interested in. So please do reach out to us. Next slide, please. So I think that's my 5 minutes up. Thank you very much indeed, Hannah. Have a great panel, and I'm very interested to see what questions come in and how we might help you. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I think that's laid a really solid foundation for everyone here on what's going on in the Hong Kong fintech landscape at the moment. So before we dive into our panel discussion, I just want to give everyone on the roadshow an exciting sneak peek at what we have coming up for you at Hong Kong FinTech Week this year. FinTech Week takes place between the 2nd and 6th of November from Hong Kong. But as we all know, the international travel situation is pretty precarious at the moment, and we're not sure how that's going to unfold over the next few months. So we are super excited to announce that Hong Kong FinTech Week is going virtual in a big way for 2020. We are bringing you all the content, the networking, the business opportunities that Hong Kong FinTech Week is famous for, accessible from one smooth virtual app right from the comfort of your own home. And what does that mean in terms of numbers? Well, with everyone logging on from every corner of the world, we're expecting more than 25,000 attendees from more than 70 global economies. They'll be listening to more than 350 speakers across several different live stream stages of content. And we're expecting more than 4,000 business meetings to occur using our AI-powered matchmaking app. Hong Kong FinTech Week has always been famous for the content that we bring to you, and this year is absolutely no different. We're bringing the biggest global fintech companies, the founders with the most exciting backstories, to the stage to share their insights with you on what's going on in fintech today. And some of the content that we'll be looking at in more detail is the rise of tech fin in China. What are the huge technology companies in China doing, and how will this impact on the rest of the global fintech industry? We'll also take a deep dive into innovative technology, looking beyond the headlines and seeing some real world applications and solutions using things like artificial intelligence, distributed ledger technology, and blockchain. And of course, one of the main reasons that people attend in-person events is to network with their peers and make the connections that they need to drive their business forward. So we're delighted to announce that we've been working on a really smooth virtual app that allows you to meet the people you need to meet, send messages, book in video calls, or even meetings. And one of our most exciting initiatives this year is the Global Fast Track program. I think this will be super relevant for many of our audience online today. This is a B2B matchmaking program that allows you to pitch your products and solutions to some of the Hong Kong FinTech's most senior executives across financial institutions, regulators, and investors. We are accepting applications now, fintechweek.hk/fast track in the 8 verticals shown on screen. And I cannot really stress enough just how many benefits this program can bring you, as well as connecting with corporates and investors. There is also a wealth of support available to make your Hong Kong market entry as smooth as possible. There are funding and landing support grants available from Hong Kong government and partners worth up to $2.6 million US. We're also working closely with investors to provide an investment commitment of up to $1 million US for the overall fast track champion at the end of the pitching competition. This program is completely free to participate in and can be done 100% virtually online. So apply now, fintechweek.hk/fast track. So now that we've had an overview of the Hong Kong FinTech landscape and we've had a little look at what's coming up in a few months for you at Hong Kong FinTech Week, I'd like to kick off our panel discussion today. I'm honored to be joined by some super distinguished speakers today. We have Mr. Calvin Choi, Chairman and CEO of AMTD. AMTD are the strategic partner of Hong Kong FinTech Week this year. They're also one of our fast track corporate champions. So if you apply, you could be pitching your product to Calvin and his team in just a few short months. I'm also joined by Mr. Claus Christensen, CEO and founder of Know Your Customer. I have Keith Moses, Senior Manager of FinTech in London for Invest Hong Kong, and Ms. Rachel Freeman, Executive Director for BD at TymeGlobal. I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of our panelists for joining us today, and a reminder to everyone that you can pop your questions for our panel into the Q&A box at any time, and we will put them to our speakers. But I would like to kick off today's discussion with a question for Calvin. So today we are looking at going global, exploring new markets, and AMTD is a homegrown Hong Kong company with loads of global activity, operations, and investment around the world. What challenges have you faced along the way during this global expansion? And can you give any advice for companies looking to generate buzz in an unexplored territory or a new market?
Thank you, Hannah. I think the challenges and also alongside the way that when we grow our businesses into different areas or different countries, I think will be something like knowing more about the culture of the actual country, and actually embracing what I always call it as the AMTD side, our motto, be global. So I think we embrace internationalization, we embrace global connectivity, but yet I think we also embrace and support so much localization. So I think it will be very much important that I think when we go to each particular areas or places or country, that we support a lot of the localization. We use and support local talent, but at the same time, I think we embrace how we connect the dots globally. I think, and at the same time, I think it's we treasure a lot about talents. I mean that's the way that I think we have been growing our businesses. I think talents represent, of course, most importantly for financial services. But when we talk about fintech, I think it's not just fin, but also tech. But tech as well as I think it's also very much about talents. So I think we support and focus a lot in terms of our investment and also commitment into grooming and cultivating digital talents. That in Hong Kong, we work with the Polytechnic University. We have the first fintech school in Hong Kong, now giving out fintech degree, PhD specializing in this area. And also, I think onward to Southeast Asia, we work with 2 universities there, the Singapore Management University and also the ISS Institute at the National University of Singapore, together with Xiaomi, to promote, I think, lots of talent development. We created a program, we call it the Digital Finance Leadership Academy. So ultimately, it's really about embracing local talent, supporting international connectivity, and and building out a digital talent hub in each of the countries that we build our own practice. So I think that's the little secret or recipe in terms of how we grow our global businesses.
Thank you, Calvin. That's super interesting. It's about embracing local talent and creating connectivity between regions. I'd like to ask Rachel now, actually, because at Time you've expanded, your growth by leveraging successful partnerships, notably with Pick and Pay and Mambu. Do you have any advice for any other fintechs on how they can successfully create and maintain these kind of partnerships to accelerate their own growth?
Well, thank you. And thank you to FinAsia and Invest Hong Kong. I'm really happy to be here. And it's great to be on a panel with Calvin, who's a personal hero of mine. So yes, Time, we are very proud because we're celebrating the 2 million customers in Time Bank in South Africa, which is our first major deployment. We also have deployments of part of our technology in New Zealand and Indonesia. But the main bank that we've created is in South Africa. And we have a very interesting approach. We actually believe that people like people and that people actually like going out and doing things. And this pandemic has showed how much people are hunger to have interaction and to be outside and to go places. So we believe that banking in emerging markets should be done through where people go. And the most places that people go are the grocery store. So we have kiosks in the grocery stores in South Africa. We also have an app on the phone. And initially we thought most people would come in with the app. I think this is quite interesting for people sitting in Europe with Monzo, Starling, and all of the great heroes in digital banking to hear. Rather than going in through the app, 85% of our 2 million customers have come in from the kiosk in the grocery store, which has shown how important this partnership with Pick and Pay is. People can come in the grocery store within 3.5 minutes. They open a bank account, they get a personalized debit card, then they can go to the cash register and start doing cash in, cash out. We believe that in emerging markets, cash will still exist. And most of the countries like the Philippines, Malaysia, Vietnam, cash is not going to go away anytime soon. So for digital banking, you need to have a way to help people move in and out of cash. And we are leveraging the grocery store for that. And the second piece is that you need to be able to do this efficiently. And that's why we have a completely cloud-based strategy. We have a very deep partnership with Mambu that we started in South Africa. We employ a loosely coupled microservice platform, which is really enhanced by Mambu. Now that we're looking to move into Southeast Asia and we're having active conversations in a number of countries, the most important partnership for us has been the retail infrastructure. We believe that those markets are similar to South Africa and that the best way to enter is through going through grocery stores or the large shopping malls. In Indonesia, our kiosks are actively opening accounts in the shopping malls, but actually what we think is best is having like a hypermarket, a large grocery store infrastructure. And in Southeast Asia, there are so many large networks of grocery stores that it's quite a nice way to enter the market.
Fantastic. So you've picked some really key partners who are able to accelerate your growth into new markets. So that's really interesting. So now that we've looked at sort of partnerships and nurturing talent, I'd like to ask Claus, actually. I think one of the things that companies are always considering when they're looking at entering a new market is, do they need to establish a new office or a regional hub? And at Know Your Customer, you've acquired customers across 11 different market segments. How has having a Hong Kong location complemented your headquarters in Europe?
It was extremely important for us. We came to Hong Kong in 2018 for the first time at the beginning of 2018, and we made this a priority. I think that is the first key part or key message that I would say everybody needs to listen to. Make it a high-level priority. At that time in 2018, I went personally. I'm CEO and co-founder. I went personally to Hong Kong for 3 months, and it turned out to be 2 years. I basically spent 80% of my time in the last year since the beginning of 2018 in Hong Kong. It is a surprising market if you come into it from afar and just see, oh yeah, this is a city. Yes, it's a global financial center, but vibrancy and the whole ecosystem that is in the city and all the connections to Southeast Asia, plus the Greater Bay Area, are so immense that there's a lot of work to do. And the culture is fantastically open. More open than many other around the area. And so that means it was a very, very good point. How do we do it? We did establish an office, and we did establish some partnership. Having the office was crucial in all of that. I think trying to do this from afar and just doing the helicopter thing, go in, do a deal and go out again, would have been, in my estimation, about 10% as effective. We would have never gotten as far. And indeed, Hong Kong is now our strongest market, and we've had more progress there in the last 6 months than in past 2 years in Europe. It's that interesting. So to answer the question, how has it complemented? I wouldn't even say complemented. It has surpassed the Europe part, and that also in two parts. Every startup company needs not just customers. We also need some funding, investment, and connections to the authorities there. And all that worked extremely well for us in Hong Kong. So that's why.
Fantastic, thank you. So we've heard about partnerships, we've heard about local talent, and we've heard about opening a local office as well. I'd like to come to Keith now, and sort of from the government perspective, what are some of the opportunities, the big opportunities for international fintechs looking at Hong Kong and looking at the current landscape there?
A very good morning to everyone, and good afternoon to colleagues in Hong Kong and the wider Hong Kong FinTech ecosystem, which I'm sure is counting down the days to Hong Kong FinTech Week. I think opportunities for international companies in Hong Kong can be traced back to roughly 2017, when the de facto central bank, HKMA, issued the 7-part smart banking plan. The key elements of that plan are the introduction of the faster payment system, which generated some 3.5 million registered users in under 12 months, rising to about 4.5 million by April 2020. I think that has facilitated a shift to, from cash to digital payments. It's also allowed financial institutions to build their own payment solutions on top of the system. We've seen the introduction of open banking. Since October last year, customers have been able to apply for products via open APIs. We've had the introduction of the Banking Made Easy initiative, designed to reduce friction in digital experiences. I think Claus is going to speak more about that, because I think it's about digital onboarding. We've seen the launch of virtual banks. 8 licenses have subsequently been issued. And I think earlier this year, we had one virtual bank, ZA, launching with a very provocative short-term saving product, which I think is a foretaste of what is to come. So I think taken together, I think these elements have combined to put Hong Kong in a very strong position, I think, to appeal to international companies. I think in terms of specific opportunities, I think one of the things that you observe about Hong Kong is that there is a disparity between the high levels of digital engagement and the level of customer experience satisfaction. And I think as financial institutions, banks in particular, deploy third-party cloud solutions as they acquire more data during this COVID phase, I think there's an opportunity for AI to suggest new uses for that data to unlock this very high level of dissatisfaction with customer experiences. One of the key opportunities that is emerging, I think, is to do with the insurtech space. So during COVID, we've seen a moratorium on face-to-face distribution for insurance products. I think Hong Kong is overwhelmingly a face-to-face insurance distribution market. I think this moratorium has allowed some insurance products to be made available online. We think this will presage, we hope this will presage a change in regulation in due course, which I think should be of interest to a lot of insurtechs across Europe. Last but not least, virtual banks in Hong Kong are subject to the same capital and compliance requirements as traditional banks. And I think they will come under pressure, I think, to employ tech, I think, to reduce their regulatory cost, which I think is quite significant. So again, there's an opportunity there for RegTechs, in particular, to look at Hong Kong. Just to round up, there was a recent survey into the adoption of FinTech by banks in Hong Kong, published in May this year. According to that survey, about 30% of incumbents are in Hong Kong. So keep in mind that there are about 163 banks in Hong Kong, of which about 31 are local banks, and the rest are foreign banks. About 30% of incumbents said they had met their FinTech objectives. And to be fair, most of them have reached for the low-hanging fruits. So they've gone for the predictive analytics, payments, funds transfer, but they haven't done enough around DLT, RegTech, smart contracts. For example, about 50%, 40 to 50% of incumbents say they had formed commercial partnerships with fintechs, which suggests that there is a strong appetite to engage with international fintechs looking to provide services to banks in Hong Kong. Can I leave it there for now, and we can return to some of the key points.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Keith. Some really interesting points there. Lots of opportunities, and lots of the verticals that you mentioned, RegTech, insurance, retail and commercial banking. These are all verticals that we are focusing heavily on in our fast track program. So if you're a B2B company operating in these areas, apply online now, and we can help you to help to support you to grow your business in Hong Kong. I'd now like to throw a question out to all of our panelists. It will be interesting to see what all of your views are on this. What are some of the big differences between FinTech in Asia and FinTech in Europe or Africa in terms of operating models and culture? So I'll come to Calvin with that one first, please.
I think there are, of course, different local specialties and also culture, specifics, I think, for different companies. I think FinTech specific. I think, the most important, I think, is, onto the different components, which are the key. Number one, of course, are the fundamental values, strategies, and also the technologies, right? So what are the key solutions that this particular company, they are, to promote or to deliver, I mean, to resolve, which kind of, what kind of pain points. I mean, that's for one, what are the fundamental strategies and those solutions, right? Number two, I think, is that whether they have a very good and capable founding team or key management team. I mean, the people talents again, right? So finally, I think it's really about onward in terms of this particular company, whether they have such long-term vision to support and anchor the growth of the company. I think to navigate through the ups and downs of the different economic cycle. So I think, if you then take a step back, I think, I wouldn't see much differences in terms of, any FinTech players, around the globe in particular countries or areas. I think, focusing, on the three areas that we talk about it. I think ultimately, I think, is to, find in fact, not the differences, but the commonalities, right? So when you from one country into another country to navigate along the space, to find your partners, your alliance, parties to work together. I think finding the commonalities, I think, something more important than finding differences, right? But at the same time, I think focusing into the areas that what you can provide to add on to the overall values are indeed, more important, right? That, how you add on to the overall combined solution or aggregate power of the overall. And then finally, I think it's how to support and groom the local talents, right? To add on, from your international experience or foreign experience, adding to the local know-how, and then to combine up, into a very comprehensive solution. I think these are the things that I see, for the overall as we navigate along the global fintech space.
Thank you, Calvin. I think that's actually a really important message, to look beyond sort of surface differences and try to find common ground when entering a new market. Claus, moving from Europe into Asia, how did you find that? Were there big differences? Were you able to find commonalities?
Absolutely. In our case, as our name says, know your customer, we are know your customer, so we are about KYC. This is all about anti-money laundering regulations. And the regulations in the world are different, obviously. Societies have different priorities, and Asian societies might have different priorities from the Americans or from the Europeans. What I found is more commonalities. The legal system, especially from Hong Kong, is eminently compatible with what we have here in Europe. It's a common law system, and a lot of the institutions are very, very compatible, and the regulations are compatible. That means it makes it an ideal entry point to connect to the whole region, to China especially, of course, because it's part of that, and yet it has a different system, and that is an absolutely fantastic plus for this jurisdiction for us. It made it very easy for our technology to immediately be valuable for all clients in Hong Kong, and then from there on access opportunities in Greater China. So that's something I found in the process of setting up there.
Fantastic. That makes sense, to find markets where there are existing, commonalities or similarities. Makes it easier to make the jump. Rachel, how about you, jumping from Africa then into Asian markets? Is that a similar experience for you?
So actually, we started our first deployment was in Indonesia. So we learned from Indonesia, then went to South Africa, and now we're coming back to Southeast Asia. So one thing, if we look at these markets, there are so many similarities, and it's about the diversity of bringing all the different thoughts. We have 12 people in our office in Hong Kong. We represent 6 different countries and 4 continents. So across that, we feel very much that we are bringing all of what's happening in FinTech in Africa, in Europe, in the US, and in Asia. What is exciting is that the consumer and the customer is very demanding in Asia. So that keeps us really on our toes about thinking how to meet the customer need here in Asia. And we're learning things here that then we take to Africa. In South Africa, it's a very sophisticated banking sector, a very sophisticated regulator. So there are aspects of that experience that we've been able to bring actually back to Asia. So what we see, it's the combination of working across several markets that keeps us really excited and moving forward and coming up with new products and services. I think that you have to recognize the power of the tech fins in China, which is really driving a lot of thought and new product development across all of Asia. And for Time that works across these different markets, it's actually so important to stay on top of everything that's happening in China, everything that's happening in Europe and the UK, which is a lot of interesting digital banks there, and then being able to quickly synthesize that together and come up with what is good for the customer after spending time really understanding and doing the right ethnographic research in the countries that you want to go into.
Brilliant, thank you. And Keith, just to round up on this question then, you've advised thousands of companies on making the jump from Europe into Asia. Are there any sort of big differences or things that you've seen come up time and time again on companies making that journey?
Well, let me start by saying that FinTech in Europe, in the UK in particular, emerged in response to the credit crunch, back in 2008, which explains why lending payments we're much stronger, in the early phases, evolving to wealth tech, insure tech, and the current phase where we have the interplay of GDPR, PSD2, and open banking, creating this, open banking ecosystem where we have a lot more open banking companies that are now, looking to Asia. So the similarities between Hong Kong and the UK are on many levels. One, the concentration of financial institutions in both markets. In banking, in particular, where we have 4 or 5 banks in Hong Kong and 4 or 5 banks in the UK, being responsible for a very large share of the market in terms of loans, mortgages, and credit cards. So in the UK, we've got a number of fintechs that have grown up around disrupting that sort of concentrated market. And as some of those companies are established, have scale behind them, increasingly they are looking at Asia to see whether there is scope to transfer some of the relationships that they have in Europe, in Asia. So just to give an example, we have companies in the open banking space like TrueLayer. They are leaders in their field, here in the UK and across Europe. They have what are called transferable reference points. They are working with the leading companies in the UK, and therefore they are able, I think, to have conversations with financial institutions, in Hong Kong. So more and more we see established fintechs that emerged in response to the financial crisis. Given the fact that Hong Kong is an ideal market for scale-ups rather than startups, they have pedigree. Companies like Cosign, for example, in the in the wage tech space, and they are able, I think, to take that sort of collateral, to Hong Kong and build, a business around it. And I think those are the sort of similarities that I see between the two markets. They are to do with the concentration of financial institutions, the emergence of best-in-class B2B tech solutions, in Europe that are able to command the respect of financial institutions in Hong Kong.
Fantastic, thank you. Right, we are getting some questions in from the audience, so I'm going to start putting these to our panel as well. So Calvin, this one's for you. Our audience member asked, I want to ask, how do you predict the willingness of global investors to invest in Hong Kong, potentially also mainland China, in the following 5 years?
Well, I would predict that, or also in my opinion or perspective, that I think there will be a lot of interest generated, from around the globe to invest into fintech, into Hong Kong, into China, into Greater Bay. I think ultimately, for Hong Kong situated within Greater Bay, an area with over 71 million population, I think it's a space with lots of increasing connectivity and also potentials. I think, in terms of, what we talk about it, Keith, I think, talked about early on in terms of the 8 virtual banking license. So we are very glad to be one of the 8, virtual banking license holder right now. Just recently officially opened our business operation. So this ASR Bank is our partnership from AMTD and Xiaomi. But then I think, we are seeing that also the opportunities for digital banking, I think, across the region, it's really just the start and the beginning. So, how we see that into the Hong Kong as the opportunity, we are really looking into Greater Bay. So how gradually the connectivity, within, the Greater Bay to become opening up. I think in fact, not just, for the Greater Bay or from Hong Kong, but we are really looking into also the connectivity from the Greater Bay into the Southeast Asia and beyond. So I think earlier this year, I think at the World Economic Forum, we successfully hosted an event that we call it the Smart Asia, connecting from Greater Bay to the ASEAN markets. So I think, ultimately we are here looking into the business opportunities, or, as both an investors or an operator, we are really looking into about connecting the dots and how to extend and also to connect our businesses from one particular area onward to another, and creating a bigger pie, bigger solution game, and be able to serve and service, more of the holistic customers. So I think it's really about regional approach and how we see that the world become more regionalization. So I think, then going back to your question, I think, Hannah, we'll see a significant amount of interest. And in fact, I mean, from AMT side, we are very much committed to long-term invest into the region, into the Greater Bay, into Hong Kong.
Fantastic. So not just about Hong Kong, and China is separate, but about Greater Bay and connectivity and wider regions as well. Fantastic. I've got a question now for Rachel, actually. So you mentioned earlier that TymeGlobal has welcomed, I think you said over 2 million customers since February. What lessons can fintechs learn from this about coping with fast-paced customer growth?
All right. So first, I think we've been really happy with the technology stack that we set up, which is that on day one, we had 200 employees in South Africa and Vietnam handling the technology. And now when we've had 2 million customers, we have the same amount. So we had built a system that actually would handle the scale and the growth. And that's been a huge positive for us. And we really are grateful to our technology partners that we work with, like AWS and Mambu, for helping us create this technology stack that's really grown. The second piece is about trust. It's very important as you start to grow customers that you work and deeply connect with them in the areas of trust and dignity. And we spend a lot of time on how to build that trust, because as a digital bank, you don't want to just be a small account that's on the side. You actually want to be the account in which the salary goes into. And for people to actually trust that you have in that way, they have to believe that you're not just the digital bank that has an interesting app, but you have a whole host of products and services behind that. So we've spent a lot of time on really refining what those products and services are. In the South African market, it's been very important to have very strong savings products. And we launched the savings products, which were quite unique, goal save products. And we've maintained those during the COVID period. So actually, we've gained a lot of customer positive sentiment since we have not changed any of our products during that, but actually have kept our no-fee approach, as well as making our send money product free. So we've really developed in terms of on the area of trust. And the second is dignity, particularly in underserved or unserved markets. And South Africa would fit into an underserved market. Working to enhance so that people feel that they are being treated with dignity and how they experience us has been very important. So when we work to create some of those core philosophical values into our product, it's been able so that people really understand who we are, what we're there for, and then we've been able to grow quickly because our products and services really match those core values.
Fantastic. It's about having solid technology, a solid solution, and building trust with your customer base to continue that growth. Brilliant. All right, I've had a question in for Claus, which is, how can the industry support the growth of RegTech?
Oh, interesting. I would say twofold. On the one hand, the industry would be the large industry players, like the large tier one banks that use regulation technology. And on the other hand, it's about the regulator themselves. So banks and large financial institutions traditionally have a bit of a hard time engaging with startups, and many of the RegTech players are startups. They have a difficulty of showing 5 years audited accounts for a long onboarding process as a vendor. We just made it past that limit. We are 5 years old, but for many smaller players, it's really, really difficult. Now, fortunately, in Hong Kong, there are some efforts there. For example, SC Ventures has a series of open door lectures and webinars. We've been invited to that, and DBS has a similar thing going on where they engage and actively reach out to fintech and smaller RegTech players, and that's very, very good to see. To the second part about the regulator, and that is something often, or in general over the past decades, regulations have been written for a paper process. They have been written for the old style and not with the technology in mind that by now is ubiquitous. And that is a bit of a drawback, and regulators are currently struggling or catching up to a degree. fortunately, again, in Hong Kong, HKMA and the SFC have both been very active and have sent out guidance material for remote onboarding, for example, and digitization of these processes. And that is very important. And HKMA has been absolutely exceptional in this way. HKMA has started a series of events that promote the use of RegTech specifically in Hong Kong's financial institutions. And last December, they invited us to a 2-day event where they invited all their member banks or their regulated banks in Hong Kong, and specifically from a very high level said that they encourage and are really making this the basis of their policies, the use of RegTech. And I think you cannot have any better starting position than the regulator encouraging their subjects to use your technology. And indeed, that's what we see is happening big time in Hong Kong right now.
Fantastic. So a lot of responsibility, on the regulators to push this forward, and great to hear that, the Hong Kong regulators are doing so much. I have another question for our whole panel. So Rachel mentioned briefly sort of underserved populations in terms of financial services. How do you think that FinTech can help with financial inclusion and serving underbanked populations in developing countries, particularly along the Belt and Road? So maybe Rachel, I'll come to you first for that one.
All right, so if you look at the markets across, Southeast Asia, there are a significant amount of underserved people. Actually, we also know that still 95% of all shopping is done still in shops, not online, and that most transactions are in cash. So if you want to actually work in these markets and serve the underserved, you're going to have to figure out how to work with cash. You're going to have to figure out how to kind of bridge and go beyond just the online world. So our experience has been that while there's high digital engagement, high Facebook usage, high social media, Instagram, TikTok, all of this very high in these countries. And in some countries, you say like, in Myanmar, Facebook means internet. That not necessarily does that mean, though, that people are willing to actually trust online with their money in terms of savings. It's one thing to get a loan, but it's another thing with savings. So again, you have to think, what are the best ways to do this? And that's why we have gone in and thought, where do people go? What are the most trusted brands, or what are the most trusted places in those markets? And that's how we worked through the grocery stores, starting in South Africa. Pick n Pay is one of the most trusted brands across South Africa and has been for decades. So it was a logical place for us to go into. But you're going to have to figure that out in these markets. The other piece is that while in a number of developing countries, there's a lot of send money applications. So there's domestic remittances, bKash in Bangladesh, Wave Money in Myanmar. A lot of that is people take money out immediately after they get the money. So it transfers one person to another, and then it goes back into cash. So thinking about how you can build out the ecosystem so that you can have small merchants using digital, thinking about how to build those out, get those as customers, and have the payment structure that is really easy to use and very flexible and across a lot of different services. So it's not just one cell phone company or another. It's very, what we call interoperable, are ways to make sure that more underserved people are going to be able to come into the digital world and start to access these services, which are going to be more accessible by cost most of the time. What we think is that they're more emotionally accessible because they can be tailored right for that need, and that they can be physically more accessible because they can be closer to you than going to a branch, particularly in countries where a branch could be 30, 40 kilometers to get to, or it's just more intimidating. So when we look at any market, we think, what is the physical accessibility? What is the cost accessibility? What is the emotional accessibility? And from that, we start to build on into what our products and services are and what is the best market entry strategy.
Fantastic, thank you. Really insightful there, a lot of detail on how Time is approaching that. Calvin, how about financial inclusion from AMTD's perspective?
I think we see that this as a huge opportunity. I think, I totally agree with Rachel. I think that there is a large population of underserved. not just for Southeast Asia, but for Asia, but in fact for the whole world. So I think we see that the underserved population, what they need are more timely support. I think more in terms of accuracy and also precision in terms of the products and also services that they are demanding. So ultimately it's really about a holistic approach of not only from a service provider, but also a totality in terms of the profiling of every underserved, in terms of what are their pain points, what are their needs, and also in terms of the overall profiling. It's been in fact a complete know your customer. So I think we see that this presents a huge opportunity for any organization or platform to provide a holistic approach of services. So I think we recently entered into a cooperation partnership with different companies, but one very interestingly is a global linker. So they create a global SME community that we intend to work with them and also different other alliance partners to fit in and plug in, I think, the different solution and also products that we now carry and present, I think, to combine up into a holistic solution game. So no matter whether we are talking about digital banking, insurance, in terms of money remittances, transfers, and also I think in terms of digitalizing any asset, onward, over digital asset exchange. I think so on an overall basis, I think we embrace a lot in terms of how we serve the underserved, how we enable the enabler and support, I think, the supporters for the society. So, these are the, different things that we work on it, I think, in terms of the holistic approach that I think AMTD, through our digital arm, we are building this, what we intend, commit ourselves to build it out as a one-stop digital connected solution platform. So I think, it's continuing, ever going, and of course it's, with lots of alliance partners and friends. I think we see lots of opportunities in this area, but I think, this will be something of a big opportunity, I think, for anyone to target the underserved, which ultimately, I think, represent population, a lot more than the already being served population. That I think, ultimately, I think you will see, lots of value creations out of this particular opportunity.
Fantastic, thank you, Calvin. I've actually had a question come in from the audience that I'd like to throw out to Keith. So at Invest Hong Kong, what is the best piece of advice that you have given a company?
You got me there. I think the best advice we give to all companies is that as they look to international markets, they need to make sure that they do so without compromising the security of the business in the domestic market. And they need to have a capability that is strong enough to compete in international markets. Many of the companies that we see here in the UK have a very strong point of difference. They have emerged in a very highly competitive ecosystem, whether it's TransferWise, Tandem, TrueLayer. So I think the best piece of advice that we give is for companies to understand the markets that they're going into, to research those markets, thoroughly. And I think that's where Invest Hong Kong comes in, because we offer free confidential customers advice. We can tailor the advice, or we can tailor the guidance to their requirements. So I think it's preventing companies from piling into international markets without fully considering, the attraction of that market.
Gotcha, thank you. And we are running out of time today, so I would like to ask a question to all of our panelists. Please try and keep it very, very short and snappy for us. Following off Keith's answer, what is your one biggest tip or top piece of advice for companies looking to enter a new market, specifically Hong Kong? Let's go to Claus for that one first.
Well, as I said before, do it right. Do it with sufficient backup. Don't just send a marketing expert to a new market. That won't work. So do your research. I totally agree with Keith, and spend sufficient time with senior staff in the jurisdiction, and try to connect to the market, to the institutions, to the associations. For example, in our case, the FinTech Association of Hong Kong has been absolutely phenomenal in connecting us to potential customers. That is my biggest feeling. But I have to say, this is a new more virtual world at this time. So here is a huge opportunity to all the participants here. Counter to what we did in 2018, jumping feet first just in there, you do now have the opportunity to conduct a good deal of research and a good deal of connection virtually. For example, through the Hong Kong FinTech Week, which was, we've been exhibiting at them every single time, has been always an excellent and very, very targeted event for us. You do have the possibility to do this virtual to a degree now, and that is a huge opportunity. Go for it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Klaus. Calvin, how about your number one top tip?
I mean, find your local alliance partners. Find your friendly party, I think, to support, to establish a partnership together. And don't do it, I think, just, by yourself or on a singular basis. I think be comprehensive, look more into the long term. Then I think embrace also localization. I think then I think you will find lots of beauty about the local power, and also how to provide your additional add-on to create something meaningful.
Fantastic, thank you. And Rachel?
All right, so I guess Claus took the FinTech Association, what I was going to say, and then Calvin just talked about partnerships, which is, of course, the time model. So I think it's actually not giving up in terms of every conversation you have is going to lead to another conversation. We have been virtually learning in 2 markets and moving into 2 markets in Southeast Asia without actually being able to go there. And it's about one conversation goes to the next conversation, goes to the next conversation, all of which we're doing virtually. The other piece is actually do the research. We have been conducting true ethnographic research through What's Up in one market, and that's actually given us so many insights. So even if it's virtual, you can still do some of the pieces that you were planning to do before. And the last is that, there's a lot of open things that are a lot of opportunity in Hong Kong, in Southeast Asia, that are really still open. So don't think, oh, this market's taken. There's definitely room to move in these different markets, so please come.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Keith, we had your best piece of advice before. We are just about ready to wrap up today's session. So I would like to say a huge thank you to all of our panelists for sharing their insights today. I think we've learned a lot about how companies can explore new markets, different methods of doing that, different strategies. One thing that comes up time and time again is the importance of partnerships. And I would like to remind everyone on the roadshow today that registration for Hong Kong FinTech Week is now open. You can find out more on fintechweek.hk, or if you're still looking to find out more about the Hong Kong market, we do have more roadshows coming up over the next couple of weeks. So thank you once again to all of our panelists and speakers. Thank you to everyone who joined us, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.